Welcome back, Streamer Nation. I'm your host, Michael Simeone. You're listening to the SP Streamer Podcast, part of the Fantrax and FantraxHQ.com family. Lauren, the Mets just hit a walk-off to win the first game against the Giants.
Yeah.
I am extremely happy right now.
I'm sure that you are. I know, because I know that you were so excited to watch. It was the game that was delayed, right? And so it's your boy, Tyler McGill, right?
Yeah.
And he got that delayed start. But that is exciting. It's with the Lindor walk-off. I mean, that's kind of you can't. It's a hard way. It's like I can't even talk right now. It's a good way to go out.
Couldn't have written it better.
Was like misfiring there, but it's a good way to go out. So you can't complain.
It is. I mean, McGill, it was really interesting what the Giants did against Tyler McGill, actually. I guess they saw something there where you couldn't let McGill kind of like get deeper into the count. I guess that's where he does his best stuff. And they attacked him really early, and they really got to him the first 2 innings. But then he settled down, pitched really well through 6. I think he finished through 6 innings. So that was good to see that, just because he had a bad start, it's good to see that McGill wouldn't just like fully unravel.
Yeah.
So
I caught the first part of it, and I had seen that, and then I didn't realize it had gone into extra innings. I was like, what happened? So
So how are your fantasy teams doing so far?
They're doing well overall. Hold on, I need to pull them up real quickly. I am doing really well in the Darf League. I do have
nice.
And then I am in kind of like middle of the pack on the wire. Same with middle. I'm kind of 7 in TGFBI. And then I am at the back of the pack in Michael Govier's Palazzo podcast. I'm 14 out of 15 in that one. So, yeah, 9 pods. Yeah,
I'm doing pretty good so far in all my leagues except for one. It is an online championship, so $350 league. I did 2. One of them, last I checked, I'm in first. The other one, I am in dead last by a mile.
Are you
of course, Mike Curlin's in that league, and he's like winning right now.
Yeah.
Last I checked, overall, is bottom 30 overall. Out of all the thousands of teams, I basically just ran into a lot of bad luck. I mean, the day after I drafted that team, Luis Castillo went down.
Yeah.
And then I had Grossman who went out. Teoscar Hernandez went down. I hit blow-ups from Ryu, Mats, bunch of other people. Sonny Gray, I think, I was on that team. He went down. It's a disaster. Yeah. I Buxton on that team. He went down for a week now, So it's a mess.
Yeah.
Hopefully I can kind of climb my way back there, but we'll see.
It's one of those things where it's just like, we're only, 2 weeks in here.
I know.
It's a long time. It's a marathon.
And it's so hard not to react to the week and a half.
No, I know. And I think it's those guys who are on the IL or whatever, they're going to come off the IL, and then new guys will go on, and it'll just, it'll be fine.
So hopefully we could claw back there.
Yeah.
All right. So the purpose of this podcast today is we're actually going to discuss we're going to discuss our early reactions to a couple of players who have started off really hot or really cold and what we think about that. But real quick, I do like to discuss Todd Whitestone's article on the NFBC main event Fab.
Yep.
So it's basically a high stakes league for anyone who doesn't know. And he just talks about who was added the most this past week. So it's just a good way to kind of see who's being added and all that kind of stuff. So the most added player this week, there were 3 actually that were super close. One was Taylor Ward, and that's because he's getting regular playing time. Paul Blackburn, who is doing some pretty good stuff, who we're going to discuss. So I'm not really going to talk about him. And then Owen Miller, who's getting regular playing time for the Cleveland Guardians.
Yep.
So they were added in 47, 46, and 46 leagues. I get it. I mean, these are 15 teamers, so I think it makes more sense for that because I kind of have a 12-team mentality.
Yeah.
I mean, besides Blackburn, because we're going to talk about him, are you buying into Owen Miller or Taylor Ward at all, do you think?
I think Owen Miller is interesting. I think that it's, he's got this really kind of crazy hot streak that he's riding right now. It's funny because he has, I think there's some holes in his plate approach, but at the same time, he's just like, his contract rates are just, it's like above, he's hitting everything, and so I do think that is a little bit more sustainable than not, but I can see where there would be kind of a hesitation, like who would you kind of drop him for, or what do you think that you're going to get out of him? And I think that if you're in a shallower league, he may not be worth that. Although I think you can't, it's fair if you want to ride the hot streak. I think that you should. But yeah, I think that kind of long term, it's kind of a question of which do you think that you're going to kind of get out of Miller. So.
Yeah. And as for Taylor Ward, I mean, he's been hitting towards the top of that lineup for the Angels. Gives you a little bit of power, a little bit of speed. So that's probably why a lot of people are jumping onto him. Some other players are Santiago Espinal. Is that right? Michael Franco, Jake Diekman, and David Peterson, and Josh Stomont. Franco, I've talked about a bunch in the what you need to know. And basically, he's just on a hot streak. He always does this, I feel like, right? Like every year, he kind of starts off hot and then just kind of disappears. So it makes sense. Diekman's a save spec. David Peterson, because he's joined the Mets rotation because of their injuries, who I think is a little underrated. I did like him a lot a couple of years ago. He's got a really good slider, so I think he's got some potential there. And then Stomont as well for saves as well there. How are you doing in saves in your leagues? Are you struggling in any of them?
Oh, yeah. I'm not good with saves. In a couple of them, I'm kind of at the bottom of the pack. Let me pull it back up. But that's because I have been going after primarily Iglesias and Clase. Those are and then I kind of tail off.
Yeah, Clase has had no chances.
Yeah. So how about you?
Yeah, I am okay. I'm in good shape in most of them except for that OC that's struggling. I have Iglesias too. I mean, he has gotten us, I think, 2 saves. But the closer after him, I'm struggling to find right now. So trying to work the wire, and we'll kind of see what happens.
It's funny. Like on that first kind of fab period, I had picked up David Robertson, and I'm glad that I did because he's kind of netted a handful of saves since then. So, and I actually thought I was like, I'm gonna pick. I guess there's no. I was like, am I picking him up too soon, sort of thing. But no, I guess when it comes to you want to try and be ahead of the curve on saves. So I was excited about that, but who knows if David Robertson's going to hang for the full season, but I'll take those saves now. So
yeah, definitely. I think he's been one of the better ads for saves. Yeah. I have him, my other OC where I'm like near the top or in first. I added him, and I have him, Taylor Rogers, and Kit Ridge. So I'm just going to ride those 3 for right now. Yeah.
I was looking forward to, because I was taking a bunch of shots on Jake McGee. And so, but it's like Gabe Kapler's like, he's the closer. And it's like, okay. But, then,
but not really.
He is. Sorry, not sorry. He's not, but okay. Yeah. But I can't bring myself to drop him at this point, though. Because who knows?
No, you can't. You got to hold on for it. Yeah. All right, so let's start talking about some players who are performing really good or really bad so far this season. I didn't put him in here, and I don't know why, but I probably should have. But let's discuss him quickly because a lot of smart people were drafting him, and he didn't start off that great. But now he's starting to come around and looking like his old self, and that's Cody Bellinger. So far this year, he's hitting .278. He's got 2 home runs. He has 3 stolen bases. His last, I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Last 7 starts. So his last 7 games, he's hitting .364 with 2 home runs and a stolen base. His strikeout rate is at 25%. What do you think? Do you think Bellinger is going to keep us going now? And like maybe we're going to start to see the old Bellinger again? What do you think?
I don't know. I think that we had talked about him in probably multiple points. I've kind of been out on Bellinger, but I know that there were people who know what they're talking about also who were really in on Bellinger. I don't know. I'm still kind of holding firm. I still don't know what to expect from him because it's also like he's playing really well. But then he could always go back to tweaking, right? He could do something and then tweak his swing or his mechanics or something for whatever reason. And he could go off the rails. But so I don't know. I would be maybe cautiously optimistic, but I'm still on the outs, I think, with him. How about you?
Yeah, so here's the thing. I think when you're looking at hitters right now, I think it's smart to look at plate discipline this
Mhm,
early.
mhm.
And I mean, again, all small samples. I know Eno Saris posted today that he thinks barrel rate's probably the best thing to look at because it stabilizes the quickest for hitters. Whereas pitching, it's K walk percentage. But Bellinger is making a lot more contact in the zone than he did the previous years. His zone contact rate right now is 85.7%. Last year was just 77%. So
Mhm,
that's a big jump. That's almost 10 points jump there. Again, small sample, so it could
mhm,
regress, definitely probably regress a little bit. His swing strikes percentage is down.
mhm.
So I think it's interesting. I probably can't fully believe it yet. And his barrel rate, which, is talked about, is at 12.5% as opposed to 7%
Right.
last year and 9% from 2 years ago. It's basically back at the rate that he had in 2019 right now.
2019. Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely super interesting. I guess we'll kind of see what happens there. But as of right now, I feel like he's still a mystery. But if you have him, great. Hold on to him.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He's definitely not on the wire, so it's not like you can really add him
No.
or anything.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right, back to the what I actually wrote down for us. We're gonna kind of go hitter, pitcher. I mean, pitcher, hitter, pitcher, hitter. Just kind of like rotate here. But we're gonna start with Andrew Heaney.
Mhm.
Right now, he has pitched 10 innings with 0 earned runs
Yeah.
and a 40% strikeout rate. So he's doing what everybody hoped he would do, right?
Mhm. Yep.
What are you thinking, Lauren? You buying in right now, or
I am buying in. I mean,
okay?
I wrote about him a little bit in the off season, and I was surprised because I've never ever been in on Heaney. But for an article that I was writing, I kind of dug a little bit deeper, and I was surprised coming out of that research that I was like, oh, well, it's really not necessarily about kind of a skill or talent issue, with Heaney. It's always been, he's kind of had this injury. Kind of history, and he just has problems with the home run ball. He basically wasn't commanding his fastball that he threw almost 60% of the time. Batters were teeing off on this pitch. So I was a little bit intrigued with him off season once he got the 1-year contract with the Dodgers, and I was like, why not? Let's take a shot since they are pretty decent when it comes to kind of working with pitchers. And so far, we've seen that. He's kind of decreased his fastball. He's using it about 48 point, or he is using it for throwing it 48.7% at this point. And then he's got that Dodger slider, that sweeper in there that he's also using at 48.1%. And right now, that sweeper it has a whiff rate of 51.1%. Neither pitch is getting hits. They both have kind of below expected batting averages and batting average of 200. So again, I don't think it's really about skill with him. It's just kind of maybe a pitch mix change, and maybe he's kind of figured it out right now. So I'm in. I have a couple of shares of him this season. I've never been in on him, so I'm glad that I am, and I'm just kind of crossing my fingers and rolling with it.
Okay, so I'm actually opposite of you right
Mhm.
now. Really good points. I was going to bring up this. That's obviously that new slider too. I mean, a 30.7 swing strike percentage right now, 52.10 swing. Again, both exaggerate numbers because of the small sample size. I mean, his K walks at 32.5%, so really good as well. So it's hard I feel like it actually just kind of depends on what you came into the season believing. If you thought this will finally be Heaney's year, you're believing this. If you're like me, where you didn't think that, I think there are reasons to not believe it. So Heaney has gone on really good stretches before. So this isn't something that hasn't happened. And then he's ended up blowing up, right? And then he goes on terrible streaks. So it's definitely still a possibility there. You bring up the injury history. I think that's another thing that we got to think about. I mean, he's only pitched 108 innings once, and that was back in 2018. Otherwise, 2019, 95 innings, 2020, 66 innings. Oh, well, that was a shortened season. Last year, 129 innings, but that was probably mainly because he wasn't that good either. So yeah, so you got that, and then here's my other issue is, so you talked about the usage of his four seam and slider. He's basically just a 2-pitch pitcher now.
Yeah.
So that's all he throws is 2 pitches. He apparently has thrown a changeup 5 times. That's it.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that could catch up to him eventually as well. Like, I mean, his four seam is hittable, so like, why wouldn't these hitters start to really lay off the breaking stuff and just wait for the four seam and kind of attack it? So I'm a little bit weary of him. I get it if you love him. Here's the thing, though, and I fully would tell everyone to go get him, is like, he was on the waiver wire. He was a free agent in a lot of leagues, even NFBC, coming into Sunday. So if he's on your waiver wire, it makes complete sense to add him, though. You might as well, because if he breaks out, he's going to be amazing.
Yeah. I think so. And I think that even though, like, prior to that, I mean, he was going around pick 300. I still think that for the upside, whether it's, strikeout or whatnot, that was still worth a pick, and because you could figure out real quickly if it's going to pan out. And if it's not, then it didn't cost you that much. So I'm kind of with you. I still think that he's worth adding in all leagues for the most part. But yeah, I think if you drafted him, it didn't cost you that much either.
Yeah. Okay, so one of us believes, one of us doesn't believe.
Thumbs
there.
up, thumbs down.
All right, let's move on to our next player, which is Seiya Suzuki. I've mentioned him twice recently, and I have to always mention Drew Wheeler when it comes to Seiya Suzuki, because he was in love with him before the season even started. He's even more in love with him now. Seiya Suzuki is hitting .429 with 4 home runs, 11 RBIs, 9 runs. He has a WRC plus of 285, an OPS of 1.493, which is ridiculous. Basically just playing out of his mind. Obviously, we can't expect a 420 average from him, but do you think Suzuki is for real here, Lauren, and that he's definitely going to be like a reliable fantasy player moving forward?
I do. I feel bad because I feel fantasy-wise, I'm on the outside looking in because I don't have any shares of Suzuki, because I was I don't really know what I'm going to get. How well is he going to transition?
Hard to trust.
I don't know. And so I basically was out. And, this is where I think kind of like Drew Wheeler, I mean, he was like, the in-house SP streamer, president of the Seiya Suzuki fan club. It's so funny that like whenever Suzuki does something well, which is basically like every time he plays, he is permanently linked with Drew Wheeler.
Oh, 100%. In our Discord, everyone's just like,
it's just like, all right, it's like Suzuki is this, yay, Drew Wheeler. So I definitely feel a little bit on the outside looking in, but I think that there's a lot here. You're not going to sustain a lot of these rates, but I think that he's shown, if there was that concern about a transition, he's like blown the doors off of, pitching. I don't think there's a ton to be concerned about. It'll be interesting to see if, once kind of pitchers make adjustments to him, how well he adjusts back. But right now, I don't really have any concerns about him. And I saw something was tweeted out today from Bleacher Nation saying that Suzuki is currently on pace to finish the season with 16 WAR, which is on pace to break Babe Ruth's record 1923 season of 15 WAR. So that would be interesting. But yeah, and I think that kind of going back to that idea of how well is someone going to transition into the league, and maybe there needs to be a difference between, kind of say highly touted prospects. Like he's not a prospect, he was just a really well-established player playing in another league who just hadn't played in the major leagues before. And maybe there's a difference between that and, say top prospects. I don't know, but I don't really have concerns. I think that he's here to stay. And if you don't enjoy watching Seiya Suzuki, then you really have no business watching. So I am all aboard. I'm all on this train. It's late. I feel like I'm late in the game on it, but I'm on board now. So
here's what's crazy, talking about barrel percentage. So barrels per plate appearance right now, again, definitely skewed, but this is the company that Seiya Suzuki's with. So first is Giancarlo Stanton, then Aaron Judge, then it's Seiya Suzuki, then behind him is Vlad Guerrero Jr., Jose Ramirez, Pete Alonso.
Crazy.
So like, talk about a crazy group to be in the middle of.
Very crazy.
So yeah, I mean, clearly a ton of talent. I think what's most impressive about him is his plate discipline as well. He's just really good. Rarely misses the ball. His swing strike percentage is like 5%. He makes a ton of contact. He's walking as much as striking out right now. So yeah, I mean, he's doing everything right, and I think that goes a long way. I think when you talk about prospects or guys coming over from overseas and they're hitters, I think plate discipline is number one. If they have good plate discipline, then they should be able to translate. They should be able to kind of mold into the MLB easier, I would think. That's why I really think, I know Julio Rodriguez is struggling a lot, and we're not going to really talk about him, but I think he's going to come around because one, he's starting to barrel the ball more. He hit a ball really hard the other day, and he has excellent plate discipline. And even though he's striking out a lot, I feel like that's going to go away, especially too. Someone posted a video on him and how much he's getting squeezed by umpires, how there's been a lot of bad pitches right outside the zone that he's getting called strikes on. Yeah, so I think plate discipline with these types of players is really important.
Agree.
Yeah. So, all right, so we both like Suzuki. We're going to move on to a pitcher, Carlos Carrasco. He has 2 starts, 10.2 innings, 0.84 ERA with a 33.3 strikeout rate. Carrasco was kind of a forgotten commodity. I mean, he didn't really have a great year last year. He tends to struggle with injuries at times, but he was a bona fide ace for a bunch of years. He pitched 200 innings a couple times. He had a good shortened season, actually, and people just kind of in 2020, and people just kind of forgot about it because he had such a bad 2021. He was going virtually free in drafts. And right now he's looking really good. And he kind of looks like the old Carrasco to me. I mean, especially with that strikeout rate and everything going for him. What are your thoughts on him, Laura?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I'm a little, I would say, cautiously optimistic. I think that he has been performing well. I think the one thing that kind of stands out, though, is, that was against Washington and Arizona. And, these are kind of bottom 5 teams in the league and kind of team WRC plus. So I think that's one thing to keep in mind. I think, looking forward, he'll be pitching against San Francisco and I believe St. Louis. So I'm curious to see kind of how he does against kind of stiffer competition. But you're right. He's pitched well. His K rate is kind of back to, Carrasco K rates. So, and I think that, it is a small sample size, and I think we have to keep that in mind with, all of these players that we're talking about. But, he has been a little bit unlucky. He's got that 174 174 BABIP and 100 left on base percentage. So, regression is definitely coming. But it may not be that bad. I just want to kind of see some of his next outings to kind of see where he falls, I guess. But I'm definitely cautiously optimistic.
If you had a bet over under ERA 3.5, what would you say?
I would probably go over.
What about 4?
No, I would say it's probably like 3.75.
3.75.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what. I kind of agree with that. I think I'd be really happy if that's what he ends up with, especially if anyone drafted him. I have 0 shares, unfortunately, but I'll be happy as a Mets fan if he performs that well. I mean, you can't really beat that as your SP4 if everyone's healthy, which is nuts. Yeah. So hopefully he continues that. I think he definitely can. It's really just a matter of health with him because the velocity is there. Everything's there. We've seen him perform really well in the past, so I don't see why I can't do it again. Yeah. All right, this next player, I'm not even going to bring him up, Lauren. I'm going to let you introduce him because I know this is your guy. I tweeted out you spoke about him in your bold predictions and how you thought he was going to have a good season, and he has certainly impressed. So why don't you talk about him?
He is. And if you don't know who it is, it's Stephen Kwan. I love Stephen Kwan. He's gotten a lot of play recently, and I like it because he's, one of the things is he's not a player that kind of tears the cover off the ball or anything. He's not going to give you a bunch of home runs or anything like that. But, he's one of these kind of grinders where he's got really elite plate discipline skills and batting average. And I think that stuff will hold up. He's, like I said, he's not going to give you a ton of power. He'll probably give you a handful of steals, and he may actually, as much as I love him, I don't think that you should kind of blindly go and pick him up off the waiver wire. I think that you have to understand what kind of player, Stephen Kwan is. And that's someone with elite plate skills. He'll be, an on-base machine. He'll give you a good average. He'll give you probably strong runs scored because he's batting out of the 2-hole. And so if that makes sense for your team, I think, plug him in. He has crazy plate discipline skills, right now. He's got 100% zone contact rate, 98.2 contact rate. It's just crazy. He doesn't chase swings. Zone contact. It's crazy. His swinging strike percentage is 0.6%.
It's insane.
So I think that this stuff will regress. But I'm telling you, he just doesn't strike out. And it's one of these players that I love that people are talking about him, but I think that he probably makes more sense. He's probably a better real life baseball player than for fantasy, but he may, be a fit for your team depending on how your team is constructed.
Yeah, the regression already kind of came. He's 0 for his last 13, in basically the last 3 games, but that won't continue either. He's going to hit in the middle. He's not going to hit 800. He's not going to hit 0.
Right.
He'll probably hit, if I were to guess, in the 300 range. His walk rate is 21.6%, which is as opposed to his strikeout rate, which is 5.4. Which is
really
insane.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like you said, really good plate discipline. You're right. I think you need to temper your expectations as to what you're going to get out of him. I do think he can, potentially, if he reaches his max potential this year, I feel like you could get 10 home runs from him, but then you could also get 7 steals from him with a really good average. So that's definitely useful. It's just not groundbreaking,
Right. And, I think part of the reason why I actually was really, really in on him was, kind of his Steamer 600 projection had him as a 17 homer, 7 steal, 277 bat. And I totally buy the 7 steals and the 277 batting average. But I think that power projection is a little bit too generous because, he never even hit more than 7 home runs in the minor leagues in his season. So I think that you are right. If you get 10 home runs out of Stephen Kwan, you should be happy with that. But yeah, just understand what he is. And but I'm totally rooting for him. I like him.
All right, this next pitcher has been up and down as of late, and that is Dylan Bundy. He has pitched in 10.1 innings, so 2 starts, but he has impressed so far with the 0.87 ERA. His strikeout rate is 20.5%, so good, but not great. But either way, he's pitched really well so far for the Minnesota Twins. Do you believe this one?
I'm not kind of a big Bundy fan. I think, the thing with me is, you're not going to get there's not a ton of kind of strikeouts to be chasing, which is fine sometimes, but I think that the bigger issue with Bundy is that you kind of see this velocity dip with him, I think, across the board with the majority of his pitches. And I think in general with when you're looking at its fastball velocity, that's been ticking downward for the most part every year since 2016. And, going from kind of a 94.5 mile per hour down to 89 right now this season and 89.5. And that's, I think when you start kind of having, you're throwing fastballs in the kind of low 90s, high 80s. If that drops a little bit further, batters can do damage. And I think that, without that K upside, I think that I'm just kind of I'm kind of out on Bundy.
Yeah, it's a really good point, and that's what I was going to bring up. Basically, the guy's throwing 89 miles an hour, and then here's the problem. In 2020, when he broke out, what he did was he threw his slider a bunch, and he lowered his fastball usage a bunch. Okay. Now he's doing the opposite. He's throwing his fastball only 89 miles an hour, and he's throwing it 38.4% of the time. So nearly 40% of the time, he's throwing an 89 mile an hour fastball. That's not good.
Nope.
As opposed to his breakout season where he only threw 33%. And now he's lowering his slider usage as well as for that changeup, which is a little weird to me too, because the slider is really good. So I don't know. I don't know if maybe Minnesota figures something out where if he throws a slider and changeup a bunch together with that fastball, it'll work better. But I don't know. it's hard for me to rely on someone who's throwing their fastball a lot and it's only 89 miles an hour and it's not good.
Yeah.
And it's like literally been his crutch his entire year, his entire career. You know what I mean?
And if it goes down, it's just like watch out. You're getting into that, Zach Greinke level of like 85 or something like that.
And he does not have the kind of like repertoire
that
Greinke has, and he's not as creative, he's not as deceptive, so it's like just not a good look for him.
Yes, this is not a good look. He does not wear it well. Yes.
I mean, if you want to add him and take a shot, okay, but don't expect it to last, in my opinion. We could both be totally wrong, but who knows? All right. Next up is Austin Meadows. He moved to Detroit in the trade, right? Trade.
Yep.
And has been hitting better. He's hitting for 417 average with a 210 WRC plus. Doesn't have a home run yet, but again, big thing is that average where last season he hit 234 in the season before that he only hit 205.
Yeah.
So clearly he's seen the ball better. Overall, he's making more contact. He's swinging more. He's making more contact in the zone specifically. So a lot of it's looking up for him. And I think if that continues, then obviously the power is going to come around with him because he does have some power and his barrel percentage actually isn't that bad right now. So me personally, I kind of think he's looking good right now. I think if you've rostered Meadows, that you're pretty happy with what you've gotten right now. And I know that the kind of stats haven't really shown up, but I think they're going to start to as the season progresses. So do you agree with that?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think that you touched on a lot of the main points with him. And I think that it's important to remember that, that he's just kind of has above average career kind of plate discipline numbers, which always, is a good base to have. And he had kind of these a couple of down batting average years. But, I think maybe there's something to this change of scenery. Maybe it's that poor batter's eye that he's leaving in Tampa Bay, going to kind of a much better batter's eye in Detroit. It's something that we saw that with Willie Adames, who always kind of complained about the batter's eye in Tampa Bay. And then he did really well once he moved over to Milwaukee. So we could be seeing a little bit of that. And, he's hit in all but one of his games. Like you said, he's got a solid plate approach. He's got double-digit walk rates. And, I think that he's been batting at the top, or I think he's batting out of 2-hole in this lineup, which is an improved lineup. And I think you combine all that, he's got this, power kind of upside. I think he'll throw in kind of a handful of stolen bases. And I think that we'll see a better batting average from him. And so I think that he'll walk away. I think that he'll have a really nice year this season, unless for some reason something falls out. But I'm in. I'm buying the move to Detroit, and I think that he can sustain it.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, next player is Brad Keller. He has pitched in 13 innings with a 1.38 ERA and a 22.2 strikeout rate. What do you think about Keller? I think I struggle with this because I really liked him coming into last season, and he was atrocious. But he has pitched well before, so it's I'm a little curious to see if this actually sticks. And it's I gotta tell you, I'm a little traumatized from him because last year I picked him as he was my first streamer, right? So opening day, I picked Brad Keller. Okay. I've definitely mentioned this before, and he lasted 1.1 innings with 6 earned runs for my first stream of the year, which wasn't great. So anyway, it's a little tough to tell. It's early. We all know he's not a strikeout pitcher, but he could pitch pretty well ratio wise. I mean, what are you thinking with him? Do you think he's got a serious shot to be under a 4 ERA pitcher?
I think he could kind of hover around 4. He's interesting. Like you said, I mean, he's not going to give you a ton of kind of strikeouts. And I think that he definitely is getting lucky right now. But unlike Bundy, I'm not kind of closing the door on Brad Keller. I think there's one thing to me that kind of stood out. I mean, you see kind of his zone contact and his contact rates are consistent with his career numbers, so that's good. But right now he's got an O-swing rate of 39.8 versus a career 30%. So and you're kind of seeing like a correlating swinging strike rate where his swinging strike rate is 11.6%. Again, small sample size, but those are good numbers for him. And his fastball velo is up a tick from last season. So he doesn't get like a lot of whiffs or strikeouts on his pitches. To me, I think that he's someone that he makes sense. Possibly, he could make sense possibly in kind of deeper leagues or AL only leagues. And I think that if you're in anything shallower than that, I guess if you want to use him kind of in the right matchups, like he's a streamer basically. I think kind of at least in shallower leagues, but. I kind of would wait and see a little bit with him. I'm not shutting the door on him yet. I think there's some intrigue there, and he could be like, he could eat up innings definitely for certain league formats, I think.
Yeah, and that's why I liked Keller last year because I thought he was going to get you a bunch of innings because the Royals did like to let him go deep into games. So if that happens, that's interesting. That could be good for you. I mean, probably could be a really good bench starter to have where you play him in certain matchups. He will most likely stay healthy, get you innings. Yeah. So it's not a bad acquisition to make. All right, next up, we have CJ Crone, Colorado Rockies first baseman, who's hitting .317 with a 198 WRC plus, and I think is tied for the league in home runs with 5.
Yeah.
So he's off to a really good start. What do you make of CJ Crone?
I like CJ Crone. I mean, I can kind of keep this short. I really liked him in the offseason. He was one of, in that tier of guys with him and Josh Bell and Joey Votto that I was kind of targeting for the position. And he's playing really well. And I think that, there's really no surprises here. I think that you're going to walk away. He's like a 30 home run guy. I think you can get a 270, 280 batting average out of him with some strong run production numbers. He's hitting the ball hard right now. He's got a 16.7% barrel rate, a 50% hard hit rate. He's making a ton of contact in the zone right now. He's got a 91.5% Z contact rate. So that's all good. That's stuff that you want to see. Again, it's early. It's kind of weird. He's only walked like 2.3. He has a 2.3% walk rate, which is kind of strange, but that'll probably even out. But yeah, I think that, he's this 30 home run guy. And I feel like this Rockies lineup is kind of sneaky good a little bit. And, he's in it and he's hitting in the middle of the order. So I think it's all good for CJ Crone.
Yeah. I mean, in front of him, he's got Connor Joe, who's another breakout. Charlie Blackmon, who I know he's older, but will hit for average, then Chris Bryant. So he's got 3 good hitters in front of him that, will help him get those RBIs. Yeah. I mean, I feel like he's just going to do what he did last year. Last year he had 280, 28 home runs. I can see even more home runs from him with 92 RBIs. Yeah. I mean, I could easily see that happening again. And, you got to love that for fantasy. I mean, he's basically giving you everything but steals. Which you're not trying to get from first base anyway. So, I think he's like the perfect player, CJ Crone, and I think he'll just continue to be successful.
Yep, I agree.
All right, next one. So this has been weird. I actually haven't had a chance to really look into him. I don't know if you have, Lauren. So it's Kyle Gibson. He was pitched 11.2 innings, a 3.09 ERA. Nothing too crazy from him. I mean, he's done this before. He started off last year really well also. And before he went to Philly, again, terrible defense behind him. Not the best thing for a mainly weak contact pitcher. But right now, his strikeout percentage is at 37.2%. What do you make of Kyle Gibson?
It's really crazy. I'm not sure that I know what to make of Kyle Gibson. Like you said, I mean, maybe he's just one of these, his MO is he has really blazing hot, like first half starts and then, kind of tapers off. I don't know. I mean, that 37.2% strikeout rate is crazy because his career is 18.5. So, I don't know. I think the thing that kind of jumps out too is that even though I think he kind of has these crazy, really good numbers with a small sample size. You point out kind of his 3.09 ERA, but that's also with a 224 FIP and a 212 Sierra. So it's like, okay, well, he's not like this good, but he's still like really good. So I kind of think that he's really intriguing. And there's a kind of a jump in his fly ball percentage. So like kind of looking at his batted ball numbers.
Profile.
Profile. Hold on here. I just lost it. My computer skipped there. But there is like a big jump in that, and you're kind of seeing my computer froze. So hold on. Like the Fangraphs page froze for me right here. So I was making a point on something, and in a minute I will bring that up.
So I think what I'm seeing here is he completely dished his four seam, which is good because it's not a very good pitch. It wasn't good last year. And instead he's relying more on his breaking ball. So it's almost like he is starting to do the right thing in terms of pitch mix. I don't know, but I don't know if I could believe it. I mean, he started throwing his cutter a lot again, which is interesting. And I don't know. I mean, what's weird about this too is the strikeout rate looks appropriate right now because his swing strike percentage is like super high. It's 19.1%.
Yeah.
Which is pretty wild.
No, and he's got like a 35.8 CSW rate. And his strikeout minus walk is 30.2. So all of this stuff looks good. I just don't really know what to make, because I don't think he's that good, but I don't think it's also fluky. I think that if anything, say if you look at his BABIP, it's not like he's getting really lucky. If anything, he's been just a touch unlucky. So like everything's kind of on par in what you want to see and in line with his previous numbers. So like I said, maybe this is his MO. Maybe he just gets off to these really hot starts. I mean, he's pitching tonight actually in Colorado, which I think if I rostered Gibson, I would kind of be like iffy on putting him in right now in that one. But I don't know. Would you put him in? Would you in the Rockies?
I wouldn't start anyone there unless they're like my A's.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I don't. He's really weird. I want to see what happens with him. I'm very curious because another thing that's super odd is his sinker is a swinging strike percentage of 21.2%, which is abnormally high. Usually it's like 6%.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on there. I mean, I'm trying to look at the movement of it. It looks like he created more vertical movement on it, but sinkers aren't really meant to be whiff pitches, like
right.
it's just,
yeah.
It's
round ball.
He's someone who I'm like, if he's on the wire, grab him and see what happens, because I don't know. I mean, we'll find out probably within 3 weeks from now if it's legit or not, these strikeouts, but it would be wild. Like him going from a career 18.5 swing strike percentage to even just like a 30%, if it regresses to that, is pretty crazy and out of nowhere. And at his age 34. So
it'd be crazy for sure.
Kyle Gibson, super interesting. All right, so we mentioned him earlier, Connor Joe, kind of having like a little bit of a breakout season here. We talked about him a lot in our Discord because the way I did my draft prep before the season started, Connor Joe popped up really high in my outfield rankings. And I did talk about him a lot. And this isn't even me bragging because I saw that and loved it and took him early. But then as soon as they got Bryant and other people, I was like, oh, maybe playing time. So I basically didn't take him in any of my, higher stakes leagues. So I have 0 shares, of course.
Yeah.
But he's hitting 359 with 196 WRC plus, a 468 on base percentage. And he now has he's basically playing every day there now because they actually realize how good he is. And he's leading off.
Yep.
So he's a really good player. Do you think that it will continue, Lauren, for Connor Joe?
I do, and I think that was always the thing with him. I think that with playing time, it wasn't necessarily about a talent. He's got a really strong plate approach. Right now he's got a 14.9% walk rate and a 19.1 strikeout rate, which is consistent with his career numbers. So that's good. He's making solid contact when he is hitting the ball. And like I said, I think the only concern was playing time, and that's not only no longer the case. Like you said, he's leading off, and like I said earlier, I think that this is a sneaky lineup, and he's at the top of it. And you know, the Rockies right now are scoring. I think they're like the fifth most runs so far this season. So they're scoring runs. He's going to be a strong, runs scored source. So I think that this is all good. I think I'm all in on Connor Joe. Now that he's got this playing time. And I think that those top 4 or 5 that we were talking about with the Rockies, I know it is the Rockies, but I think that those 4 will more or less stick at the top of that lineup.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, I think what's helping a lot of these Rockies hitters right now is they've had a lot of games at home so far.
Right.
So I think that's definitely helping them pad their numbers a little bit. So they probably will regress, but I do think that, the hitters at the top of that lineup are pretty talented and should have good seasons overall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So we both like Connor Joe. Moving on to Tyler Malley. This is super funny. So he's pitched in 12.2 innings. He has a 7.82 ERA. But the strikeout rate is still high, 27.6%. He has the biggest differential so far in the league between ERA and FIP. His ERA is 7.82 and his FIP is 1.99.
Yeah.
That's why I like small samples are so much fun, because
Yeah.
it's just absolutely ridiculous. That's definitely is not real thing. I mean, it's basically just saying that he's clearly not even remotely close to 7.82. Great pitcher. It mainly came from a blow up, which was his last start against the Dodgers, where he let up 7 runs in 3.2 innings. Usually he's a lot better on the road than at home. Again, I think if you have Malley, there's no reason to worry about it, because the strikeouts are still there. The walkout rate isn't like crazy high. I think he's going to be just fine. He has a really good arsenal. You might want to think about benching him at home still, but on the road, he's going to be pretty good. So I haven't really lost faith in him at all. Again, it's just 3 starts. It's such a small sample.
Yeah.
And the FIP, if anything, just helps you realize, he's clearly not this bad. So do you agree?
I 100%. And you pretty much hit all of the points there with Malley. So.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry for that.
Oh, no. That's
I know. You took all my points on Heaney before.
Well, there you go.
I was gonna say something too. I was like, Lauren, we're talking to each other too much because we're both
mind meld.
All right, let's move on to a hot hitter. I want to give a shout out to George Montanez on this, because he has been touting him all off season, and he's off to such a great start. And that's Jesus Sanchez on the Miami Marlins, who's finally moving up in the order, but he's hitting 343 with a 186 WRC plus, has 2 home runs, 8 RBIs, and has been on a tear lately. What do you think about him?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on board. I know that I don't have any shares of him. I know that there were people that were totally in on him, like you said, but I don't have any shares. But yeah, he's hitting really well. And I think that moving forward, I think that he can continue that, especially if he can keep up that 16.7% strikeout rate, which is good, and especially compared to a 30.1 K rate that he has. So I mean, I'm sure that there's going to be some regression there, but even with that 30.1 career rate, it's not like it killed him. Like last season, he had 14 home runs and 251 plate appearances with a 251 batting average. So it's not going to ding you, but he's looked really well, or really good. And I think that, he's had multiple hits in 5 of his last games. He's batting, I think, in the top third of the order. And, his max EV on the season is 111.1 miles per hour, which is 90th percentile. So, he's crushing fastballs this season, and he's looking good. And I think that he can keep it up. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think he has a lot of talent. A lot of people knew that he has a lot of raw power to him. So yeah, I mean, Sanchez in his last 6 starts is hitting 407 with a 1.222 OPS, just flat out crushing the ball. Yeah, I mean, a lot of talent there. I think if you have him, you could be happy, because he's going to be pretty good.
Do you have any shares of him?
I do. I have a couple of DC shares. Yeah.
Okay, nice.
All right, let's move on to, I don't even know what to say about this guy anymore. It's just kind of like an enigma.
Yeah.
Aaron Nola, 14.2 innings, a 5.52 ERA, but his strikeout rate is 26%. We're basically seeing more of what we saw last year. and he's letting the home runs. I mean,
Yeah, I know.
I honestly think Philly needs to do a lot better job of managing him. I know you want him to be your ace, and he definitely could be, but they leave him out there for too long. I mean, he pitched much better his last start in Colorado too. He went 5.1 innings with only 2 earned. But his first start against Oakland, I think he was through 5 with 0 earned runs and 7 strikeouts. And I think his pitch count was kind of getting high, and they brought him back in there, and he lets up 4 runs. It's just that happened a lot last year, and I feel like you would think maybe Philly starts thinking like maybe we limit him to 2 times through the order or something, and you'll get a lot better production out of him. I know we don't want to hear that as fantasy players because it's going to limit his innings, but we're seeing more of the same. And what do you think?
It's weird. He's kind of head scratcher. I think looking at his batted ball profile, it's so squirrely because he's got, a 36.4 home run per fly ball rate, which is really high. But his fly ball percentage is consistent with his career numbers. And then he's got like a 63% ground ball percentage and a 7.9% line drive percentage. And I just feel like all of that will work itself out, but it is really squirrely. And I think though, touching on that kind of home run per fly ball is that, he also has a 12.8% barrel percentage right now versus like a 5.7, I believe, 5.4 kind of career number. So I think that, batters are just on I think they're just catching some of his pitches, and they're just like hitting him hard, and I don't know if that's coming down to a certain kind of pitch mix or something. I don't know. It's like he's a little unlucky, but it's nothing really crazy. So I don't really know what to make of him. And maybe you're right. Maybe it is something where if you limit his time, his innings out there, maybe that'll do the trick. I don't know. But he's still putting up, he's got a decent strikeout minus walk rate. He's at 19.4. And I think when you do look at some of his rates, like his K rate and his K minus BB, they're just kind of a touch under his kind of career numbers. And maybe that's something where it's just early in the season, that short ramp up stuff. But he is a little bit of a head scratcher, and hopefully that batted ball profile will kind of straighten itself out. So I don't know. I'm a little hesitant, but it's one of those things I can see him going either way. I wouldn't be shocked if he kind of went downhill, or if he kind of played. Well, I'd be surprised if he was lights out, but if he played better, it wouldn't really surprise me. I guess I should say.
Yeah, I mean, Nola just needs to figure out the home run issue. I don't know what it is at this point. I mean, he hasn't been elite for 3 seasons now, and I don't know. It's hard. All the metrics love him. It's just like, what do we even do anymore at this point? So we'll see. Again, it's just 3 starts. Let's see what happens moving forward. One of them was in Colorado, so it's a little tough there. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, he's just, if you have him, you got to stick with him. It's no way you could drop him, and you can't even trade him because he's just not worth trading right now. It's his lowest point. So
yeah.
Hopefully we'll be talking about him in a better light soon. Yeah. All right. Last but not least, real quick, we'll talk about Tommy Edmund. He's hitting 333 with a 210 WRC plus. He does have 3 home runs already, which has kind of been the talk on Twitter, is that, the great Phil Dussault said that he's thought he could see Edmund having more power this year than previous years. And so far he has 3 home runs. I feel like everyone kind of liked Edmund because of the stolen bases and everything. I don't think he stole one yet, right?
No, he hasn't attempted yet. Yeah,
he hasn't. Yeah, which is interesting. So he's more of a power bat right now,
which we all thought, right?
Yeah, right. Perfect. I think Edmund's going to be, he's going to be who he is. I mean, the barrel rate is 17.4%. It's pretty wild. His max EV though is the same as last year, so. I mean, I guess we'll kind of see what happens there. I mean, any thoughts here, Lauren?
I don't know. It's like weird. It's like he went Yeah, it's like he found power once he started hitting from like the ninth hole, as opposed to like the leadoff spot, which he was doing primarily last season. So I don't know, whatever's going down, like in that 9 hole, it's working for him. I don't know. It looks like he's kind of pulling the rate, or he's pulling the ball a lot more. It's over 52%. So maybe he is like trying to sell out for power. I don't know what that final power number for Tommy Edmund would be. Since I think he hasn't hit more than 15, 11, I guess, throughout his career. But I don't know, maybe Phil Dussault was onto something. And I think that even if we're talking about, can he keep his power up, even if he can't, he has such like a high floor with like batting average and everything. If you kind of go back to his just regular Tommy Edmund self, where you get 10 to 11, home runs and some steals and a really kind of decent batting average, I think that you're fine. I mean, I don't know. I think batting at the ninth hole versus leading off, I don't know what his final stat line will be for stolen bases. Maybe you take off 5 or 10. I don't know. But it'll be interesting to see, because I think that when people drafted him, I think they thought they were getting a leadoff hitter who would give you a strong number of runs scored. And, like last season, he had 91 runs and 30 stolen bases. So I don't think you're going to get those numbers this season if he sticks down in the 9 hole, but it'll be interesting to see if that power does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I think it'll be interesting to see what he does moving forward. Yeah. Hopefully he does start stealing some bases though. All right, so that does it. That's our week 1, I guess, considering since we missed last week of discussing what's going on in fantasy baseball world. We'll be back next week. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at SPStreamer. You follow Lauren on Twitter at LK Auerbach. Make sure you rate and subscribe to our podcast if you enjoy it. Check out our website. We are putting up articles every day. Hopefully all of your teams are doing really well.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We will talk to you soon.